previous poem that I read, The Mower, was obviously an elegy, and this is an elegy too, but has a very different sort of subject. During the 10 years that I spent as Poet Laureate in the UK, I was forever being asked or encouraged to write poems on subjects that I had no wish to write about. But just occasionally, something came along in a semi-formal sort of way that made me think that I would have wanted to write about it, whether I'd felt obliged to or not. And of course, I fell on those subjects very gratefully. And I think none more gratefully than actually the two poems that I wrote about a man with the wonderful name of Harry Patch, who was the longest lived British soldier to have served in the First World War. I wrote a poem about him while he was still alive, after going to meet him a few times actually, and talked to him about his life. And I cobbled together the things that he'd told me into a little series of unrhymed sonnets about his life. And then after he died, aged 100 and something, I wrote this, The Death of Harry Patch. It just seemed to me, I might say perhaps, that Harry himself, who had no expectation, of course, of his war service becoming a very famous and much celebrated thing, and who was extremely modest about his own life and achievements. And in a sense, I understood that, because we can't quite control the ways or the length of our lives. We can, I suppose, extend them by eating well and having a lot of vegetables and taking care of ourselves. But we can't step out of the way of accidents, but very easily, for instance. So he had an odd sort of fame that he'd never aspired to, that had been thrust upon him simply by reason of eating a lot of vegetables or whatever it was that he did to live for a long time. And I tried to catch something of that in this poem. The Death of Harry Patch. When the next morning eventually breaks, a young captain climbs onto the fire step, knocks ash from his pipe, then drops it still warm into his pocket, checks his watch, and places the whistle back between his lips. At 0600 hours precisely, he gives the signal. But today, nothing that happens next happens according to plan. A very long and gentle note wanders away from him over the ruined ground, and hundreds of thousands of dead who lie there immediately rise up, straightening their tunics before falling in as they used to do, shoulder to shoulder, eyes front. They have left a space for the last recruit of all to join them, Harry Patch, 111 years old. But this is him now, running quick sharp along the duckboards. When he has taken his place and the whole company are settled at last, their padre appears out of nowhere, pausing a moment in front of each and every one to slip a wafer of dry mud onto their tongues.